地点附近冰頭門行有站。上班後輔數係愛中英語詞詞呢種詞。若不差分來，我就天府睇到舊隻隻衣。Use clothes the handrail and your personal belongings.
My name is Sebastian Kjeltoft. I am a journalist and Asia correspondent from Denmark. I work at the Politiken, which is Denmark's largest newspaper. I recently relocated to Taipei in April, so it's still pretty new for me, but very exciting.
So my name is Jordan Haim. I'm a freelance journalist in Taiwan. So I've been in Taiwan for about a year and a half now. I came to Taiwan in February 2021, and I write about Jewish issues and Jewish topics in Asia, and also just kind of anything that interests me about Taiwan.
Over the last 2 years, we've seen this new trend of journalists, foreign correspondents that used to be based in China or Hong Kong, moving or coming here to Taipei because of the both the difficulty of getting access back into China, or at the same time the deteriorating situation in the environment in Hong Kong.
We're going to the city, I think it's called Chui. I'm probably saying it wrong. But we're going there because we're going to Pineapple Hill. It's a pineapple producer that makes various pineapple related products. And this is in relation to a story I'm working on regarding Chinese import bans towards Taiwanese fruit and food produce.
Yeah, so the story that I'm working on right now is for Al Jazeera, and it's about kind of the recent wave of disinformation in Taiwan that has happened after Nancy Pelosi visited recently. And it's also, I'm kind of more focusing on civil groups who are working on their own to combat disinformation and fact check by themselves as opposed to the government doing it.
Key disadvantage for me being here is that I don't, unlike other journalists, speak Mandarin. One thing that I find a comparison between Denmark and Taiwan is that there seems to be in both places a very high level of trust between people. It's a very safe place.
Is this like a scam or something? Okay. So this will be a test of what I said before, that Denmark and Taiwan has this thing in common, that you can trust people. Yeah, and so we're sitting now here in a cab. It doesn't look like a cab, but he has like a meter, he has like a driver's license and everything. So let's see if he takes us to the right place.
There is indeed a trend of Asia-based reporters relocating in Taiwan. The reason is that more and more Asian countries have become authoritarian.
I think we have to go back to the beginning of the pandemic in February 2020. That was when China and the US basically started this very vicious cycle of kicking out each other's media outlets.
So when it was decided that I was to be the Asia correspondent for Politiken, we had a long process of figuring out what would be the right base for me. Where should I go? We tried initially to go to Beijing, and Beijing was not possible at the time. We figured Taiwan was the absolute right choice. Trying to get into Beijing, I got the very clear notion that it was very difficult. There was this sort of tit for tat under the presidency of Donald Trump.
I was actually originally supposed to go to China on a Fulbright fellowship to do research on kind of Chinese people's impressions of Jews in China. The Fulbright exchange between the US and China was canceled in 2020 as a result of US sanctions against China for what was happening in Hong Kong. Yeah, I wanted to come to Taiwan because in my mind at the time, it was kind of the closest thing to China. Like geographically, it was close to China, and I was continuing to study Chinese.
Yeah, so here you definitely see the pineapples all over. This is like pineapple territory for sure. Yeah. No, it's fine. Thank you. Sure. Yeah. Okay, so Mr. Yin Yang, thank you so much for taking the time to meet me.
So the reason I wanted to speak with you today is for a story that I'm writing for my newspaper, Politiken.
Taiwan is a former authoritarian country, and in that respect, press freedoms were hard fought for. And so I think this is why, for example, when you do have a discussion of laws that could potentially infringe on freedom of speech, it's quite a sensitive matter.
Why do you think it's so important that there are like non-government efforts and non-government initiatives to debunk fake news?
Because it's not suitable for government. You will not fact check your bosses or you fact check your funder. So actually, we're trying to make fact checking as a third party. For example, COFAC, we will never tell our readers saying what COFAC said is trustworthy. We will try to persuade them, take a lot of evidences to prove, to let them understand what we are thinking.
I think people's effort to fact check on their own and put this responsibility in the hands of people is definitely like a side effect of Taiwan continuing to be like a growing democracy and really strongly like wanting to defend its own democracies.
Since the cooperative all comes from this area, how important is pineapple farming to the local economy where we are right now?
So he's saying that even though in Taiwan a lot of farmers are only doing farming on the side, farming is not a priority for them. Here in Minxiong, those who grow pineapples do it professionally, do it on a full-time basis. The whole family is involved in the business of growing pineapples. He believes that the business of growing pineapples is very important for the local economy.
I understand. I've been interviewing many Taiwanese about the relationship with China, the fear of military aggression, the relationship with the US. And I find that people are very open and frank about the criticisms they have also of their own government, of mainland China, and of the Americans, for that matter.
Taiwan has a very open and free civil society. It's very easy for them to gain access to people in general and government officials.
I guess when I first found out that I would be coming to Taiwan instead of China, initially it was a pretty big relief. When I came to Taiwan, it's all of those worries of having to police what I'm writing about or be really careful about who I'm talking to or what I'm writing about kind of fell away.
There is a constant decline of press freedom in the world. Press freedom in Taiwan particularly matters because it is the counterexample to the Chinese authoritarian model. The stronger the Taiwanese press freedom model, and the harder it is for President Xi Jinping to say that freedom of the press does not apply in the context of Asian culture, that freedom of the press is not compatible with Chinese values.
It's on the database. You create a new pages inside COFAC website, COFAC database, and I will check if my picture got shown. Yes, my picture got shown on that COFAC website. And also, I could write some much more content regarding this disinformation to help other fact checker go fact check this. And we'll see.
台湾的凤梨一年产的量大概是40万吨。
So he's saying that out of every 10 pineapples grown in Taiwan, one would go to China.
Okay.
So because that percentage is something that he deems high, it was quite painful when the exports did not go out of Taiwan last year.
But do you think that the reason China actually did it was to punish Taiwan over the deteriorating relationship politically?
请问你是否会觉得中国禁止台湾凤梨的进口是为了惩罚台湾？这件事情是不是有政治性的背景呢？如果你不方便说
Is it sensitive for him to talk about that? Or?
I said that if he's uncomfortable.
Often when I'm talking to people about anything remotely political, of course cross-strait relations, or even just about how they feel about the latest COVID regulations, people seem to always want to be anonymous, don't use my name or use a fake name or something like this.
I would say for foreign media, there is almost no real huge challenge. Maybe the only challenge is, you know, the government's way of interacting with media outlets. Sometimes you feel like they don't really treat media as like professionals.
The Taiwanese system has its own like quirks and kinks. Some of it is very good, and some of it seems to be maybe a bit slower compared to what I'm used to in Denmark, in terms of when you ask a question, in terms of when you request an interview. Sometimes it can be a bit more difficult getting that access.
No, I do. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we're done here today at the Pineapple Hill, where I interviewed Mr. Ying Yan about his work and especially what had happened here after the import ban from mainland China. It turned out he wasn't really that affected, but I still think it was very good. It was very interesting to speak to him. So one thing that maybe surprised me a little bit is that when I asked him about why China had decided to do this import ban, he sort of laughed and thought hard for like a few seconds. So for sure, even though he's doing well, China is a sensitive issue to him, as it is to many people here in Taiwan.
Yeah, I thought this interview went really well. She had a really interesting story about why kind of citizen and civilian participation in kind of addressing disinformation was so important to her.
It could indeed, if the government amplifies its efforts, become in a few years a true hub where international NGO and international media would cover the Asia Pacific, because this is a place where services are of a sufficient quality, and this is a place fully respectful of the rule of law, which of course is the minimum one media organization should expect from the place where they establish a regional bureau.
I do think Taiwan has become a hub, but it's not going to be the hub. So that's definitely a positive development that more people will come, but it's not going to become the hub in which competing with, for example, Seoul or Tokyo, that is where people come here to do their reporting. I don't think that's going to happen.
Having a Chinese-speaking society doesn't mean that Taiwan can easily replace Hong Kong, replace China from becoming the new place where international media will decide to base. If we're talking about hoping to keep these journalists or keep the same number of journalists as right now over the next few years, I think it's a wishful thinking. I think a lot of them would, die to try to get back into China just to do their job properly.
I plan to stay in Asia for at least another few years. I would love to go back to China, and I would love to be there as a journalist, but the environment seems just really strict and definitely not comfortable for journalists right now.
So far, my posting in Taiwan, we talk about looking into the first 2 years of this posting. And then if things go well and we still like it, I will continue being here for longer. If suddenly there becomes an improved opportunity to go to Beijing or Shanghai, I think we will have to seriously consider that. But whether that will actually come to light, I don't know.